Welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers. My name is Maggie Gordon Walker, and I'm the founder and director of Mothers Uncovered. Join us as we explore and share the incredible stories of mothers when life has thrown at them challenge and, in some cases, trauma. Discover how the skills we learn in matrescence, which means becoming a mother, can teach us about more than motherhood. They teach us also about unconditional love, resilience, and acceptance. I'm joined today by Sam Southern, who's a devoted mother of 5 children and a stepdaughter, navigating the complexities of life after losing her husband to suicide. As a manager of a service in Blackpool, she draws on her lived experiences to project manage initiatives that support those affected by suicide. She's a passionate advocate for suicide postvention support. Her journey has fueled her commitment to raising awareness and providing compassionate support to others facing similar challenges, and she strives to foster understanding and healing within her community. I met Sam through the Sound Delivery Media Network that we both participated in. It's a fabulous organisation, so do go and look them up. Sam, welcome to The Secret Life of Mothers.
Hello, Maggie.
Hello.
How exciting is
Hello,
this?
Sam.
Hello.
Sam, let's start by asking, where in the country are you based, and is this the same area as you grew up?
So yes and no. I am based in Blackpool, and I was actually born in Billinge, which is near Wigan or in Wigan, and I lived there till I was 4. So my memories growing up are definitely Blackpool based. So yeah, and I love Blackpool. I love it. I'm on the Foul Coast, so we kind of live I either live because I'm a bit like a gypsy, I like to move house a lot. I either live in Blackpool or go down to St Anne's and live them. So it just depends what my mood takes me. Yeah.
Exactly. Good to have different locations according to mood. Absolutely. So, Sam, what would we need to know about you to understand how you would describe yourself as a mother?
Um, I think it's a. I think being a mum is a journey. And I started off as a very young mum. So I've been a teenage mum, a 20s mum, a 30s mum. And I know you're always a mum, but I've had children in these ages. So my eldest is 20. Is he 28 or 29? This is my perimenopause.
I think you told me it was
28.
29, but you know, obviously know
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. No, I can't remember, honestly. Perimenopause brain, but he was born in 1996. So I think he's 29. And my youngest is 7. So I've got a massive age gap between them. As a mum, I think I probably developed more patience as I've got older, they would say. I'm quite an open book with them all. We all we talk a lot, to be fair, and I think we've been through a lot together. So we are like the most dysfunctional family when we're all together in one room, but the most happiest together as well. And I think they are my biggest creation, my children. I absolutely adore them all. But it is the hardest job in the world. And I think when you've gone through trauma as well, with families, it's difficult. It's difficult. We don't get it right, do we, all the time as mums? And I try and be better and own it when I'm not right.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this, the generation I grew up in, the 70s, and you're a bit younger than me, the 80s, there wasn't a lot of talk. It was just you got on with it. And I
Mm.
think there's been a much greater move now to discuss how we parent, both within ourselves and to our children, and to let them see, we're not perfect. We get it wrong. And if you can own that and talk about it, then that's the kind of the only way forward, I think.
No, totally, totally. And I think I like that. I've got a different relationship with all of them. But I'm close to all of them. all of them in a different way. And there's four of them still at home, so I have got four of them still at home. Chloe's out away traveling at the moment. She's just been she's in the Philippines as we speak. But Josh has bought his own house, and Jess, my stepdaughter, bought her own house too. So it's good. And I wouldn't change 1 inch of the craziness and the madness of us all for anything, if I'm honest. Yeah.
So, your early life, you told me, was quite turbulent for you and your brother. Can you tell us a bit about that and any particular moments that stand out for you?
Yeah, so I think my earliest memories are very much being moved about a lot with my mum and dad. My mum had quite a lot of struggles, and she would move frequently. She used to go up to Wales quite a lot, and we'd go up there. I do remember that, and I remember my mum being quite ill when I was really little, 3 or 4, I think. And then we all moved to Blackpool as a family again, so I'd be about 4.5. And then my mum she'd lost her mum and dad. My mum died when I was about 2 months old with lung cancer. I think she'd only been diagnosed about 10 days. And then when she was pregnant with my brother, he's just 2 years younger than me, she lost her dad, my granddad, in a car accident. He died instantly, and I think maybe with her uncle. But there was a few of them in the car. And then when my brother was born, he got scalded by a kettle in the kitchen when he was 6 months old. So he was in Booth all. It was in Manchester that for about 6 months. He nearly died. So she kind of had back-to-back trauma. And she'd had I was the firstborn. She'd had I think it was one stillborn and three later miscarriages. So she'd been trying to have children with her dad for quite a while. So I think between them, really, to be fair, my dad's dad had died when he was quite young too. So there'd been quite a lot of trauma. And then my mum and dad actually split up when I was 8. And my mum met somebody and I stayed with my dad. So he was quite high media profile, and the press were quite a problem within our lives, me and my brother, when we were little. So it was back in the day when they could be like that, I suppose, because they'd be stood outside the school gates, and when you came out of school, they'd be driving past the house because we still lived with my dad. Um, I remember I used to stick my middle finger up at them and say, no comment. So I suppose my life was quite chaotic, but I didn't realise. And then when I was 13, we lost my stepdad. My sister was born to my mum, and we lost my stepdad. And that was one of the most shocking, traumatic experiences of my life at that time.
How old were you
I
when your stepfather died?
was 13
13.
when
That's
he
already a
died. And
difficult time, isn't it?
yeah. And I was living with my dad still. My dad had custody of us, and my mum used to travel a lot, so she was in London most of the time. Um, I had a good relationship with my mum as I got older. I didn't speak to her quite a while when I was young, probably about 8, 9, 10, just because I was hurt for how she'd hurt. I was hurt seeing my dad hurt, I think. I was always a daddy's girl. And then he died, and that was a shock. And I saw my mum deteriorate really in front of my eyes there, because she was 41 when Les died. So yeah, it was heartbreaking. And my sister was only 8 months old, so she was tiny. Um, and I kind of used to go around and try and help. It was well before phones. You had to go to a phone box, didn't you, on the end of the street? And I think actually I'm telling a bit of a lie there, because I remember Les had this massive phone that was a mobile one that had a big back on it, but
In the
I
early
didn't have a
90s, yeah,
phone.
that was
Yeah,
unusual. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, really big. And one in the car. one in the car on the dash. But yeah, so it was hard to watch. And that was very high profile. It was all it was Sky News. We had Sky News, and it was all over Sky News. It was everywhere. And
You just want to
obviously we were,
confirm to our listeners who he was, just because people will be wondering.
yeah, so my stepdad was Les Dawson, and he was such a wonderful man. He
I
really
used
was.
to
And he was,
laugh at him so much growing up. He really was absolutely hysterical. I remember when he died and I was so, so sad. I thought he was wonderful. Obviously, I only knew his public persona, but I could just see him. He was so, so funny.
he had such a serious side too, which was always quite
Really.
interesting. Yeah, he was funny at home when I went over to the house when they were back, and I used to stay with him in London quite a lot in the holidays. But yeah, he could have, and he was such a good writer. He had like a big study and he'd sit in there, and I can still hear him in my mind, back in your thoughts, your memories of his typewriter ticking, because he used to write quite a lot of books. But yeah, he was a lovely guy. So I suppose that was my first, looking back, things were traumatic, but I would say I just thought that that was quite normal.
Yeah,
Our
yeah.
life was just quite normal. That's how it was.
If you've got nothing to compare it to, then yes,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
say
I
that
suppose
around
so.
you there'd been quite a lot of loss and trauma. So
Yeah,
that was just
yeah,
the fabric of your life. So I'm
yeah.
particularly interested on, the impact perhaps from your mum and her difficulties being able to conceive, and the impact on you when you became a teenager and you started to have relationships yourself. Is
Yeah, so
that in the
my
back of your
first,
mind, that kind of
yeah,
awareness of that?
I've never really thought about it, I suppose, till I got older. But I think I was very streetwise. I would class myself very streetwise because my dad worked at BAE. He had a 5 day a week, massive long hours job. He was an engineer or a fitter or whatever he was. And he would go out of the house at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and he wouldn't be back till late. And in I was in charge of making sure the house was clean, because I'd be so embarrassed to bring people round. Between my brother and him, it was just a tip. But he always cooked our tea. So he'd cook our tea every night, for for the next night. It'd be covered up in the fridge. So I kind of had a bit of free reign, really, looking back. Me and my brother, I kind of outgrown school. And I had a boyfriend who I'd been with from being about 13, and I was with him till I was 19. I obviously got pregnant when I was 16. I lived with my dad, so he did do the washing. So I must have been about 3.5 months pregnant, maybe four. I'd gone to the doctors, and I was on the pill. So the doctors, I've been put on the pill, but I'd had a very heavy episode of drinking, going to a nightclub when I probably wasn't thinking. And I think and I was very ill for days. So I don't know whether that had counterreacted. And they'd also had me on some antibiotics, because they used to say, well, they say now, don't take certain things. So I hadn't realised, I don't think, till I was about 10 or 11 weeks. And I'd gone and made an appointment at the doctor's, and my friend had told her mum. So I remember her mum taking me to the doctor's. And as I came out the doctor's, for some reason, my dad had finished work early and was driving past the bottom of the doctor's. So he saw me coming out the doctor's, and I didn't go home. I went to my boyfriend's house. So I got there, and I remember him ringing me and saying, "You're pregnant." And I said, "How do you know?" And he said, "Because I do your washing, and I've not washed your knickers. I've washed your knickers and you've not had a period." So um, he said, "You need to tell your mother." And I think, looking back now, I probably was searching for more than I ever really realised, because I wanted some form of normality. But I didn't really know what normality was, because that's kind of how we'd flowed. And my mum and dad were good parents. They were just doing the best they could with what tills they had. So I remember taking my friend and my best friend. my best friend, and my best friend's mum at the time down to my mum's house to tell her. And I didn't want to tell her, and she absolutely lost her marbles. My mum, she was not happy. She was banging every single door, slamming everything, telling me I was adopting and this, that, and the other. And my auntie was there at the time, and she said she she won't be the first, she won't be the last. And in the cusp of that, it came out that something similar had happened to my auntie, who was the eldest, and she'd had to have it adopted. And it'd gone from
Different time again. Yeah.
the
Yeah.
nunnery times and all sorts. So she was absolutely amazing. I've got a really good relationship with my eldest auntie, but that's the first time I'd heard of stuff that even happened. So once he got over the shock, my dad just said to me, "Right, you're 16. You're 16. You finished school now. I'll support you." He got retired. He'd been unwell with his chest, and he was getting medically retired. "I'll support you and I'll help you with the baby as much as I can, but you can't live at home. You've got to stand on your own 2 feet. If this is what you want to do, then that is the only way it's going to work." So I enrolled at college to do hairdressing. Um, for when leaving school. And then because I'd started the course there, I got an apprenticeship because I was pregnant and carried on. And then had Josh through a very traumatic birth. Um, but yeah, I look back and I think, oh my God, I think where I really realised how young I was is when I look at my children now, and I still think they are babies, and not one of them has got children, the older ones, apart from Jess, who's just had a baby, and she's like 27 now. So, you know, I look and think, wow. And some of the pictures that I look back at, and I did it, and I managed, and we got a flat. Me and Josh's dad, we got a little flat, and I walked to work every day, and then I did my driving, and then I decided that I was going to go into nursing, and I went and joined the hospital. And I don't know, it just worked. And I found Josh just the most easiest, looking back, the most easiest little boy. But the birth was so traumatic. I didn't have any pain relief because my mum kept saying, "Don't have pain relief. It warps your mind, and make sure we do the breathing." So she came to all the breathing classes with me, and I'm having this natural birth in this birthing pool. And then the next thing, he's breech. So he was breech. So I had to get out and stumble across a room. And then I just remember thinking, I'll never do this again. And I was dead excited because I got away with no stitches. So I was like, I've done this all with no stitches, no forceps afterwards. But when you look back, God, it was an experience. Um, and then he was just like, me and Josh, I've never known adulthood without him in my life because I was still a baby really when I had him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
You
yeah,
couldn't
and
even
he's
legally go out for a drink when he was born.
no, no. I used to get ID'd when you could show fake ID, but I used to get ID'd all the time because I was so young.
Yeah.
Um, but we did it, and you look now, there's so many things in place, isn't there now for teenage mums and things? But there wasn't anything then. And I wouldn't have changed him for the world. I think my life could have took a very different route if I hadn't have had Josh. I think he actually kept me more on the straight and narrow than at the time I ever realised.
So because we've got a lot to get through, Sam.
Yeah,
Your
sorry.
relationship with John, that's fine. It's just, yeah, we want to make sure we get a bit of everything. So you and Josh's dad then split up and you got together with your next partner,
Yeah.
and you experienced domestic abuse with him. Are you comfortable talking
Yeah.
about some of that? And
Yeah. So I was with him for 13 years pretty much. Yeah, and it was looking back at the start, we kind of just met and it was a bit of a whirlwind. He was a lot older than me. And I kind of definitely think I looked for the wrong man if I look back. And then do you know what? I get on with him fine now because we do. But he was quite a lost, broken soul. And I think I liked that. I liked to try and go in and fix things or feel like I was needed to be fixing things. So he had 5 children when I met him, and then I had my 2 children with him. I was 20 and 24. Um, I had Chloe and Jack. Um, I
I think
got,
there's something in that if you've had trauma yourself growing up, which you did, but and you're carrying your parents' trauma. I think it's quite common to think, as you did, I will go and fix this person because it just
mm,
repeats, doesn't it? The cycles repeat over generations.
yeah, yeah, they do. And I think it takes you to stop and try and break the own side. But it's hard, isn't it, to recognize your own behaviors? You've got to
Of
take a
course.
really hard
Yeah.
look at yourself. So I had Chloe, and we seemingly were happy, but we weren't. I did adore him. He was older than me, but really, when I look back, he gave me 2 beautiful children and learnt me a lot of lessons. And he was, he drank a lot. I drank too much, but he drank a lot. And he had been through his own traumas, and it sadly he took it out on me quite a lot, mainly when he'd been drinking. And I was very good at fighting back as well because I wouldn't be kind of walked all over, but it just wasn't healthy. And I think it got to the point where sadly me and my eldest have been walking around the streets with no shoes on when actually the house was owned by me and I should have not been leaving the house. And you look back on things that they've had to go through, and it's not right really, but I can't change it, can I? I talk about that quite openly, but I got postnatal depression after Jack, and it was like the 2 births were quite quick. Chloe was like a 35 minute. I didn't even realize I was about to give birth, and I genuinely had no idea I was actually poorly, and it took about a year for it to come out with that I realised that I wasn't right. And I was getting more and more anxious, and I hadn't been sleeping, and I started thinking I got MS, which was interesting. I was researching and Googling, and I worked at the hospital at this point, and I just couldn't function. So I'd sit up all night and write notes to the children thinking I was going to die. And it was obviously manifesting as telling them I loved them, but I was going to die. And then it all came out that I'd got postnatal depression, and I went on medication, and the years carried on. I went on pretty much work 5 nights a week at the hospital. I went in to do uni to do um my degree, and kind of just threw myself into working nights, still living together. And that was kind of just a cycle. I only ever really saw him 1 night a week. But what became difficult then was he was actually wandering the streets because he was out drinking round and about. So I was finding out that he wasn't even in the house with the kids, and I was coming back and pulling him back from parties and all sorts. And I was no angel, don't get me wrong, but it just wasn't right. And in the end, he couldn't functionally work himself. So it was just like, why am I actually doing this? What is he actually bringing to the table? So I left the house that I lived in and went and rented somewhere, and just moved overnight. It was just like, I am done. And I was
With
on
the
my own for
kids, I
about eight.
assume. You and the
Yeah,
kids
with the
went
kids. Oh, me and the kids went everywhere. We were just like, oh, yeah, I could never. I think I had a bit of a thing about nobody could ever take my kids because I struggled with the fact that I hadn't grown up with my mum. So it was very much the fact that my kids had to be with me.
yeah.
There's no way on this earth my kids were apart from me, and he wouldn't have fought for the kids anyway. And he does speak to them now, and he would listen to this and go, "She's totally right," because he put me through hell and back a lot. But he went and got his own help when we split up, and he's sober now. He's been sober for about 10 years, so and he's actually a better person for it. So I had to forgive that because there's just no point. It eats you up. So for me, it was just about letting it all go. I was quite happy. I finished my uni, I lived on my own. I had a bit of a wild 30s moment, which I definitely did because I'd never really had a period of being on my own. Um, and then I met Glenn
Before we
in,
get on to Glenn, I've just
okay.
want to touch on, you talked there about your postnatal depression and how you
Mhm.
thought, yeah, you were going to die. So as you know, I advocate for matrescence, which means becoming a mother. And it's only just starting to come out now, all of the stuff that a mother, particularly in that first year of her child's life, goes through, all the thoughts and the body changes. Obviously, you were already a mother, but it's just something where I meet a lot of mothers and they think they've gone mad, but actually it's just that process that they're going through. And I think hopefully now there's more awareness being brought to it through the work of people, lots of people, and me as head of Mothers Uncovered. We can help mothers to feel a little calmer in that transition.
Yeah, definitely, because I didn't recognize I was unwell.
Yeah.
I didn't have a clue. And I think that's interesting, isn't it? I was just 100 or trying to be 100 mile an hour. Um, and he'd had quite a few complications, Jack, and he didn't sleep well. But because I hadn't felt like that with the first two, but then I don't know. It was three children. I was 24 at the end of the day. I'd gone through two relationships and both weren't great looking back, and it was a lot.
Mm. I mean, they say your brain doesn't finish fully developing till you're 25.
Exactly.
So
There we
you've been
go.
through a whole lot of stuff, but you're such a go-getter, Sam, because you told me that you left your job in the NHS. I think you said in 2014, and
Yeah.
you started a business.
Yeah.
So was
Yeah.
that you were with Glenn by that point? I'm just trying to get the timeline
Yes.
straight. So
Yeah. Yeah,
let's
I
hear a bit
was.
about your business because that just sounded great. Tell our listeners about that.
All right. So yeah, I decided that go to uni, do all this hard work, and then I got so fed up with the politics of everything and the fact that
You
I
know,
am
Sam.
caring. Yeah, I'm caring, and you want to give the best. I want people to be treated how I would want me to be treated or my family. And I think it just gets lost in how busy and the politics of the job. So I left and I started. I sat on nights and I used to write little notes to myself, like I'm going to just get a sandwich shop. I just had a vision that I could stand in a kitchen, make sandwiches for work people, and pass it over, and it'd be dead therapeutic. Anyway, we got a shop, and it was an office. So I developed into with the help of people, obviously designed it as a kitchen, put all the planning in. I did this, and then it was this sandwich shop that was going to have me and just my brother, because he was a chef as well. He'd done chef by trade, and I called it Mama's Kitchen. And anyway, it just took off. So it ended up being 7 days a week.
In
7 days a
Blackpool.
week in Blackpool, 7 till 9 it was open, and we used to swap on a Sunday from breakfast to Sunday dinners, and it ended up being a delivery service. So we used to advertise delivering hangover breakfasts and all sorts. So it was just so good. It taught me so much. I mean, I'd always had to, because I'd worked on busy wards, you had to be time managed and organised, but that taught me so many life skills and I loved it. However, in 2014 at the back end, because I started it at the beginning, I was making, I had Sienna. I was making prawns in the kitchen for somebody for a lunch. And I just remember feeling this overwhelming, I'm going to be sick. And I was pregnant with Sienna. And it was like, oh my Lord. So that was like, but I carried on. I was in labour. I was counting down my contractions in the shop on the 17th of December 2014, um, and cashing up and then going to give birth 2 hours later.
My
Because I
goodness.
was so determined that, and I didn't have maternity pay, did I? Because I just left the hospital and given up a great job. So, yeah, but it was so successful. So from that, we carried on. And then in 2017, I found out I was pregnant with Henry, and it was like, it's going to be too much with two little ones. So we we put it up for sale, and we sold it to a gentleman that actually worked for me, and he carried it on. But it was so successful. So I don't know, I just kind of get these ideas and sit with him and think, did he feel right? And then I just go for it, I suppose. And I am a go-getter. Um, because I think in life's hard, isn't it? And if we do want something, we have to put the effort in ourselves. We can't just sit back and think everything's gonna and blame. You can't blame everything. I feel that through everything that I've learned from growing up, we've got to own what we can do in something to go forward. And I think that's what I try to do in all of my situations. But Henry's like the baby. So Henry is the baby of the family. There is a bigger age gap. My eldest will always go, there's a bigger age gap between me and Henry than there is me and you, Mum. And there is. But yeah, what a team. And we are a good team. We have our
Yeah.
moments, but we are a good team. And I'm proud of them all.
Yeah.
So proud. Yeah.
So yes, let's come on to Glenn then, who is the father of Henry and Sienna. So you got together with him. You described him as a grafter, very, very focused. But unfortunately, COVID, the pandemic, seriously affected his business. And then that took a toll on his mental health, not surprisingly. Perhaps he felt he was failing you and the children. So could you tell us some of the story that led to Glenn very sadly taking his own life?
Yeah, so we sold the business in 2017, which I really grafted for, and Glenn obviously developed his business with the money from it, and the plan was that I was just going to kind of do some admin from home with Henry, and everything was going really quite well. So we seemingly had everything, not without slogging for it, but everything felt like it was falling into place. Henry was born in November. The business, I think we sold the business at the end of August. He was born in the November. He was born by an emergency cesarean, so I was quite poorly after him. And Glenn was working in the house at the time downstairs with just another lad on the phones. It worked in selling gas and electric. And I would have said we were happy. He had struggles leading up to COVID. His mum had been poorly for a long time. She'd been poorly since really she'd lost her husband, his dad, in 2013. She kind of got stuck in complex grief, and she struggled, and Glenn struggled with managing Brenda. But she was a lovely, lovely lady. She was just very lost. And she got diagnosed with cancer, lung cancer. So that kind of lingered on. Although she was very up and functional until probably 2019, where she went into a care home. So we hit the back end of December, we had all the birthdays, because all the birthdays were in December, November, December, and then January was mine. And then I had to go in for surgery in 2020. I was the last surgery in February. And then we all got locked down, didn't we, in the March. So Glenn had 9 staff at this point. So they all got removed from the offices and they all went to work from home. And he carried on working or trying his best to work as best they could. They tried to function, but with the business being within gas and electric, and you have to be dealt with businesses, new businesses, and the money that was paid to them for commissions were from businesses that now were going to close. So there was clawbacks. There was all sorts going on. Obviously, none of this I knew. And it's all really in hindsight that you look at the bigger picture. But in April of 2020, his mum died in in Blackpool Vic, and she was down registered as a COVID death. And he acted. He seemingly just seemed to accept it. Really, he was upset. Don't get me wrong, but he seemed to accept it. And then we carried on. It was Easter. It was that glorious summer, wasn't it? Really, it was so
Oh,
warm.
beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was really warm, and he was carrying on working, and it came up to the June, and we were starting to where you could mix with certain families, and different things were going to happen in gardens and stuff, and you could go back to offices if you could social distance. So we got everything set up for everybody going back into the office, and which was the other house, and they went back to work as such. And on the Friday, so seemingly within 24 hours, our life seemed to unravel, and I didn't really understand where it had come from. So on the Friday, he had picked me up to go and pick the kids up from school and nursery. Sienna was in reception. They had to come out two different doors. We went and got them, and then we went home. But as we were waiting, there was a message come through on the phone, and it looked very flirty. It was his work phone, and the only reason I'd looked at it was because Sienna was having a meltdown in the back, waiting for Henry, and wanted to go on his YouTube, and that's the phone he used. He was out on his other phone, so it was obviously a work-related thing. And never said anything. And then we went home. I was really quiet, and he obviously realised something wasn't right. But we had tea. We had a friend staying over. A friend staying over. One of my daughter's friends had been living with us because her dad was shielding. So she was there, and she was great with the kids. So we got a takeaway. We all sat down, and then we he spoke to me about 9:30 in the bedroom when we put the kids to bed, and we never really argued. It wasn't really a thing. And I just said to him, he said, what's going on here? And I said, I don't know, but I'm asking you, because I didn't get to read the message, and then I wouldn't have gone back and read it because it wasn't my style really. But because I've been through so much with my ex, and he was very good at cheating and doing all sorts, he knew I would not stand for any trust. So I said, if we haven't got trust, we haven't got anything. He said, what does that mean? I said, I don't know. Do you want to explain to me what is actually going on? And he just said, I can't. And I said, well, I think you should go and stay at the other house, and have a think about what it is you want. And he went that night. So it was probably about, the last time I saw him was probably about 10:30, 11:15. And he went, and Danielle, he tried to drive. Now, he'd had quite a bit to drink. So Danielle took the keys off him, which was one of Chloe's friends, and said, you're not driving. So we got a taxi, we got the receipt for that. So we got a taxi, but he must have been outside or lingering, because when you're looking at timelines, there's about an hour gap of where he'd actually been. I went to bed because I had the two little ones to get up with. And then I woke up at 7 o'clock in the morning, and I had all these massive amounts of messages that had been sent on Messenger saying that tell the kids I love them, and will this mean we are over? But we still hadn't even had a conversation. So I tried to ring him, and it was ringing out, and I ended up contacting the manager that used to go in there, and he went round to check him, and he said he's all right, he's asleep on a chair. He looks a bit rough, he looks like he's been up drinking. So I was like, right, fine. Anyway, he rang, he said, I told him to ring you when he gets up. So he rang, and he just screamed down the phone, but he wasn't making any sense. So I started to panic. I just felt something was not right. I'd never heard him like that. So I phoned his daughter and said, we're going to have to go round. And we ended up going round. We phoned my son. No, I got my son. My son was in his bed. The eldest one sent him round. And then my mum was on a walk, because she could go out walking again and doing all that. So she was on a walk through the woods that way. So they all turned up. And then it was just all hell broke loose. So they obviously found him dead in the other property, and he left quite a lengthy note about he missed his dad. It was, and it just shows really how complex suicide is because it was so many factors really that would come into play. And I look at things and listen to people that I support now, and it's like this, I hate saying perfect, but it is, it's like a perfect storm of events that kind of at some point somebody just snaps. And we were
Yes.
too
Yeah,
late.
and his mum, obviously, he was grieving his mum as well as his, because he
Yeah,
hadn't
but
really
he
dealt with
doesn't
that, had he?
mention his mum. No, he
Not
doesn't mention his
interesting.
mum.
But that must have been there, but he just, perhaps that was so painful, he couldn't even
Yeah,
think to put that
yeah.
down. It must have been.
So we got a very lengthy suicide now, and pictures, sadly for the kids when they're older, the little ones, and he'd wrote messages to them and all different things. And I just think it was the most horrific to-date experience that I've ever lived. And I obviously have moved forward. I don't think you ever get over something as traumatic as that. We as a family, it destroyed us for a long time, and we've kind of have to really rebuild our lives around this gaping hole. And as a mother, that is hard to think that if I put my eldest son in that position, even his daughter, you start to, it's so difficult.
They were the ones that
And
found him, your son and his daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And my son's girlfriend was with him too. But yeah, my mum was outside because I heard her scream. I heard her scream. She never saw him. And she sounded like the day Les had died. And I heard her scream. And I knew, um, I just knew. And it was funny because my mum was 41 when Les died, and I was 41 when Glenn died. It was just bizarre, bizarre. But looking at us all now, we are doing amazing and incredible things. You know, my eldest son's got a fantastic job, and he's completely changed his career path, and he's doing amazing. My daughter's off traveling the world, and she's finished a degree. And Glenn's daughter Jess, she's had a baby, and she's bought a house, and she's happy. And we are, but I don't think, and we don't think that pain. Um, ever truly goes away. It just seems more distant, and like we've got a big life that's filling around it all now. But he left a big, massive hole.
On this podcast, we like to talk about the idea of post-traumatic growth as opposed to
Yeah.
stress. So yeah, the shock and trauma of losing Glenn was obviously profound. And then you noticed that there was a gap in what was on offer for other families who've been bereaved. So out of all of that trauma that happened there, how has that changed you, particularly as a mum, and led to you doing the work that you do?
Yeah, so quite early on, because I couldn't really get any support, I was calling and calling and noticed that that gap was huge, really. And we might have all these national helpline numbers or whatever, but actually getting any physical help was very difficult. So I felt from very early on that we needed a kind of trauma or crisis management thing in place, something that would go in and help these families at the onset of the aftermath. And I worked really hard. I started a lived experience position in 2023, early in January, as a coordinator to coordinate a new project that the council were funding in a charity. And we just, the gap that I knew was there just completely opened that wide once it started, that we realised the floodgates opened like it does. And we now are a service. So I run Solace Empowerment. We go into people that have lost people to suicide within the first couple of hours. It can be up to a few days. Still very much trying to get the referrals in for everyone. That's an ongoing battle, but it's just gone from strength to strength. And I did a support group this week, and it made me quite emotional to see, like, I think there was 17 people coming. Blackpool's only small, and I'm supporting all these people and some of them. And we did a bit of a questionnaire for the council because I'm helping build the strategy for suicide prevention. And I was like, on a bereavement perspective, it's all well and good to go with my voice, which I talk about all the time, but I need to hear everybody else's voices now. And just the support was all solace. So what I'm doing is obviously working, but then it's given me so much peace, I suppose. And helping it is healing, isn't it? It's the most strangest thing. I mean, I know it's not for everybody, but I think it became my calling after what happened to me. You know, it's not okay for families to go through that on their own, and not not everybody has a good network. And even when they do, as a mother, you are trying to piece everything together. And I was not doing a very good job at times, trying to hide it from the older ones, and they absolutely knew I was falling apart, but trying to keep it together for the little ones. And you think back to all that, and it's like nobody should have to navigate that. So that's what we're there for, to help them navigate in a community-backed approach. And we obviously still signpost, we can get them counselling, all sorts of different things. And I just absolutely love it. And part and parcel of it is we do events and reduce stigma. And I did a conference last year, which was absolutely fun. Honestly, it was amazing. I was really quite surprised. We do Unite for Hope. And I'm obviously project lead for the Baton Hope this year at Blackpool. So yeah.
You are such a go-getter, Sam. All the things you do, it's phenomenal.
Feel blessed though.
Yeah.
I feel blessed to have it makes me quite emotional because I think this is the sober side of me coming out now, because I've not drank now for nearly 320 odd days or something. I was looking on my app yesterday, and I think my choice to stop drinking was definitely I drank too much, but it wasn't. It was actually taking over my life. It was how it made me feel afterwards. And I do think when you've had lots of trauma, alcohol is a really good, easy go-to. It's available everywhere. And I really thought part of my next bit of this journey was to face trauma without having a shield to numb it. And the anxiety afterwards has been so much, like, it was horrific at times, and now I don't have that. I have my perimenopause anxiety, but it's not like this hangover one. And I'm noticing how grateful I feel to actually, and I know that must sound ridiculous to somebody, but I feel so blessed to be able to help people and not let them suffer, even though I know they're suffering, but be there to hold the hand, help them, guide them in which direction they need to go, and not feel like they've just been completely abandoned as we did.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So Josh was born in 1996. Yeah.
Mm.
So on the day before he was born, if you were to write a letter or a postcard to yourself with some advice about being a mum, what would it be?
Take each day as it comes. Look after yourself. I was writing it to me because if I've learned anything over the past few years, if you're not trying to look after yourself, you're actually no good to your children. And I think so it'd be take each day as it comes, and look after yourself and own it. Own where you've gone wrong, because it'll make them better. And it'll make them better humans. To see you owning your faults, they'll be able to start looking at their own.
And as you say, you as a family have got these gaps through losing Glenn, and but you're all keeping on going, aren't you? And you all love each other, and you're you're all like a big connected unit,
Yeah.
which is phenomenal. That's down to you, Sam, and kind of holding it together, and but also allowing them to see that you're vulnerable.
Yeah. And I think, yeah, I think that is true. And I do think, I think part of that is letting them see I'm vulnerable and then acknowledging where I know I've been not quite the best mum at times because I was going through my own trauma and grief and I was just doing the best I could do at that moment. And I think that is definitely a key part to take away from any parent, because I don't think parents like my mum and dad would ever have owned that when I was growing up. Because it wasn't how things were done, was it? And I do think we need to. Generational trauma is definitely a thing, isn't it? And if we're going to start breaking cycles, we need to start somewhere. And I think I felt that that's where I had to do that. And to be fair to my mum, she stopped drinking about 5 years ago, and she is so much more aware of things now. And she wasn't drinking all the time. It's just the fact that I do think alcohol plays a big part of numbing trauma for people, and it's quite normal that's how people do it.
It is.
So
It's socially accepted, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So, lastly, Sam, as Mothers Uncovered operates, we run these creative support groups for mums so that they can explore their experiences through art or writing. Obviously, we can't do that on a podcast, but we like to ask our guests what matrescence disc that they would play if they were on a desert island, something that they associate either with, their mother or themselves as a mother, or just generally anything to do with sort of family life. So, what would be your chosen song?
It would be Whitney Houston, Step by Step.
And why is that?
Because if you listen to the words, it's step by step, brick by brick, and that's how life is, isn't it? I think we live too much in the future. I think if we break things down when we're in the most difficult positions and just look at the next step in front of you or the next building block and crossing that next bridge. And it's what got me through losing Glenn a lot. I used to listen to that song a lot and if I put that on with my two youngest, they'll dance around the kitchen with me now because it's known for what kind of goes through. Yeah. And I love the words. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, it is, because in general, as humans, we tend to you worry about things that happened in the past, you worry about things that might happen in the future, but it's now. You can only exist in the now, and you have to say, in this precise moment, everything is okay. I'm here with my kids dancing around the kitchen.
Yeah. And that's it. And that song for me is just that.
Brilliant. Sam, how can people reach you? Do you want to share the website or your Instagram or both?
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So my Instagram is Sammy Sons, and the website is Solace at Empowerment Charity Blackpool. So yeah.
Sam,
Thank
it's been
you.
absolutely wonderful talking to you. And I think you're an
You.
inspiration. And I wish you
Thank you, Maggie, and I think you are too.
all the best with all the work you're doing. Solace sounds so amazing, and it's clear the people of Blackpool know that, and they really cherish the work that you do. So thank you.